Welcome to Grade 12 Economics Common Test of March 2024. And we are going to look at a common test from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So, moving on to why instructions that we have that we just need to go through before we answer the question paper. We've got instructions that we are given. The first instruction reads answer 3 questions as follows. Section A is going to be compulsory. Section B, you answer any one question from this section. You have got 2 questions and then you are going to choose one. And then for section C, answer any one of the 2 questions again. You have 2 questions, you also choose one. That is the essay part. So this is what we have, but within the context of this video, we are going to answer question 1 to 4. That is only one essay question. So for instruction 2, number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. So this is another instruction that we can take notes, and then we've got another important instruction. Read the questions carefully and start each question on a new page, which is also important. So these are some of the instructions that we can just pick according to this video. So for the first question, it's our question 1, which is obviously going to be compulsory, and then our question is going to 20 marks. When it requires you to spend on average 10 minutes. So this is what we have on our question 1. So the question reads various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the correct answer and write only the letter A to C next to the question number, and then we are given how you are going to you are going to present it in your answer book. The first question is the method that is used to calculate GDP at market price by adding the final values of all final goods and services produced is called. So we can just take note. This is measuring of GDP. So it did to come up with a method of measuring GDP. So but we're given a hint as it says GDP at market price by adding the final values of final goods. So these are goods that has been produced. So obviously, according to the responses given, you are going to see that the correct response that we have is a production. Is called production. So the production method is the one that is being referred to. So moving on to the second question, it is successive periods of expansions and contractions in the level of economic activities is referred to as dash cycles. You're given business cycles, economic cycles, productivity cycles, inflationary cycles, but the correct response that we have is business cycles. Remember, business cycles we can just try to simplify the description as it is explained as intervals of general expansion followed by recession in economic performance, which are periods of expansions. So when we are having an expansion and then we have a contraction, which is being referred to a recession in my explanation. So that's the further explanation that we can give in terms of business cycles. So moving on to 1.1.3. Goods that are provided for the society as a whole are called, we've got private goods, collective goods, demerit goods, community goods. So the correct response that we have there is D, which is a community goods. So basically, community goods these are goods that are free in circulation. So that makes our community goods to be the correct response that we have there. Then 1.1.4, the interaction of economies with trade as an important element is known as, so we've got privatization, globalization, entrepreneurship, export promotion. So you're going to see that the correct response that we have is globalization. So we have globalization here. Remember, globalization is a process of increasing interdependence and integration among the economies. So when we are having interdependence and integration among economies, we call that globalization. Also, it's going to be integration and interdependence of markets, societies, and cultures of different countries worldwide. So basically, we are saying globalization as a term describe how trade and technology have made the world into a more connected and interdependent place. So that's what we have with globalization. So we go to 1.1.5. The units of accounts which can be used to settle balance of payments deficit is called. We've got current accounts, bank accounts, special drawings rights, savings account. So according to the responses given, you'd see that we have special drawings rights, which is C as the correct response. So special drawings rights, they are meant for IMF member countries, whereby we are saying IMF member countries can borrow the special drawings rights from reserves at various interest rates, mainly to adjust their balance of payments to favorable positions. So that's how the process involving our special drawings rights uh, is about. So basically, this is our question 5, and we try to move on to the next part, whereby we are now having our part 2, which is 1.2, which is on matching words. It reads, choose a description from column B that matches in the term in column A. Write the only letter A to I next to the question number, that is question 1 to 8 in your answer book. So you're given the column A and you're given the column B. So you need to pick an explanation that we have in column B that matches the term given in column A. So the first term that we have is basic price. Basic price. So basically, basic price basically is the amount actually received and kept by the producer. So it includes non-taxes, non-product taxes on a production. So it doesn't include non-product taxes on a production. Within the context of that explanation, we can try to pick an explanation that is matching basic price. So we can try to see according to our column B. So if you go to E, saying the initial value, in the initial value in production of final goods before taxes and subsidies are connected, are considered. So that makes E the correct response. So we have E. So moving on to 1.2.2, we have got juggler cycles. We have juggler cycles. So basically, according to our responses that we have, we can try to see which one matches our juggler cycles. Caused by A, we've got caused by changes in net investment by businesses and the government. So we have A as the correct response. So we are saying A. So moving on to 1.2.3, whereby we have got a progressive tax. So obviously it's under the progressive tax system. So the progressive tax is a tax rate. It describes a tax rate that increases as taxable amount increases. So it imposes a lower tax rate on low income earners. So that's the essence behind a progressive tax, that it does uh, charge lower tax rates on lower income earners. So according to that, let's try to see what we have in column B. That which is progressive tax. We have G, saying the percentage paid in tax increases as income increases. So we have G as the correct response. Then we go to 1.2.4, whereby we say comparative advantage. So we'll try to see again which one do matches comparative advantage according to our column B. We have B, which says one country can produce goods at a lower opportunity cost than others. So the one that produces goods at a lower opportunity cost is the comparative advantage analysis. So we have a B. Then moving on to our savings, we try to see which explanation matches savings. We have got C, saying portion of the income that is not spent. So we have C. Then we also have the multiplier. Also, we have the multiplier, and we try to see which one do matches at the multiplier in column B. It's an initial change in spending to the total change in income. So the income changes are responding to a change in spending that has taken place. So we have D as the correct response. So this becomes the last question that we have on 1.2. So moving on to 1.3. 1.3 reads, give one term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term next to the question number, that is 1, 4, in your answer book. So you're given an instruction that reads acronyms and abbreviations will not be accepted. Very important to take note. Then first question, spending that is not influenced by the level of output and income. We know that this is autonomous spending. Remember, autonomous spending, it is spending that occurs even if income level is zero. Even if your income level is zero, you make that expenditure of autonomous spending. So we are basically saying it does not vary with the level of your level of income. So that's the correct term that we have, which we are saying autonomous spending. So we're moving on to 1.3.2, factors that originate outside of the economy that causes business cycles. And this is the exogenous approach. Remember, the exogenous approach says exogenous variables is the one that exists outside of the model. And any variable that exists outside the model explains the exogenous approach. So we have exogenous approach. Then we go to the next question, which says people who are able to use public goods and services without paying for them. Obviously, we call these people free riders. They are free riders. So we have free riders as the correct response. We'll move on to the next part, which is saying the value of a country's currency in terms of another currency. And this is basically exchange rate. Exchange rate is the correct response. So this is what we have on this part. Of course, we are now moving on to the second part of our question paper, which is now question 2. And we know that our question 2 is on macroeconomics, and it consists of 40 marks and requires you to spend on average 30 minutes on this question. So moving on to our question 2, the first question reads, name any two macroeconomic objectives of the state. We can see that this is the first question that we have. So obviously, on macroeconomic objectives, remember when we are saying macroeconomic, we refer to the study of aggregate economy. Aggregate economy, we are saying the whole economy. So it has to be an objective that is of the whole economy, and that is the aggregated economy. So basically, the first objective that we have is economic growth, which is obviously part of those factors that affect the whole economy. We've got economic growth, we've got full employment, economic equity, price stability as objectives that are part of the whole economy. So Going on to the second question, it says, how would an increase in the value of the US dollars affect the value of South African rand? So obviously, when the US dollar has increased the value, it means we now need more units of the South African rand to buy the US dollar. So basically, in that case, uh, it makes basically our imports more more expensive. But obviously, our exports are becoming to be cheaper. So that's the case with having the US dollar uh, increasing value over the South African rand. So we have that reason again stated in the other section where we're saying the South Africans or holders of the rands will require more rands to buy goods that are in US dollars. So basically, that's the scenario that we have. Then moving on to the next question, is saying start the picture below and answer the question that follow. So you are given a picture whereby you are seeing that we have got SABC, here. We have PRASA here. We have got the South African Airways. We have got SABC Sports. We have got ESCOM. So those are some of the names that we can see there. Believe that it reads, identify any one state-owned enterprise from the picture above. And we can see that we've got various state-owned enterprises that we can pick there. We have got SABC, we have got ESCOM. So we have them stated again in our other section whereby we are saying we have ESCOM, PRASA, SABC, and Geneva again is there, and then the SAA. So these are the state-owned enterprises that are stated there. Then our question only requires one, so you can only state one. Then 2.2.2 give any level of the South African government. We know that we've got different levels of the South African government, whereby we've got the central, provincial, obviously we have the local. So we have also those stated in our other section whereby we have the central, which is the national government, provincial government, local government, and also parastatal. So those are some of those are the governments, level of governments that we have. And to take note of our question, it's only asking for any level. So it means you're only supposed to pick one, as we are having 1 mark. Then I briefly describe the term Pareto efficiency. So remember, Pareto efficiency is an economic state where resources cannot be reallocated to make one individual better off without making one individual worse off. So this is the case of Pareto efficiency. So moving on to the description that we have in other section, it reads Pareto efficiency means making one better off without making others worse off. So that's the description that we have. So moving on to 2.2.4, what is the negative effect of service delivery protests on the standard of living? What is the negative effect of service delivery protests on the standard of living? Obviously, it's going to be a negative. It's going to cause a negative impact on the standard of living. In other words, the standards of living are going to worsen. So we have again points stated in the other section whereby we are saying service delivery protests are the enemy to service delivery as they blockade provisioning by the state, as they prevents provisioning by the state. Blockade meaning preventing. So this is the first point. Second was during protesting, some communities resort to destroy critical facilities like schools. This is a setback to the process of development. And then last point is when service delivery protest erupts, people and the government cannot focus on personal well-being, thereby lowering their standard of living. So those are the points that we have. Then moving on to the next part, it reads, how can privatization of state-owned enterprise benefit the South African economy? So obviously, there are many positives that we can deduce from privatization. Remember, privatization is the migration of ownership from the public sector to the private sector. So with that essence, we are going to say that we are going to have more production taking place since private sector's main objective is efficiency so that they maximize profits. So in that essence of attaining efficiency, we are going to see production of more goods. So it's going to lead to more macroeconomic positives, increase in GDP, that is the gross domestic product, obviously it will increase. So also employment is going to increase, so it's going to again to ease the macroeconomic problem of unemployment. So basically that's what we have. So we have also that stated in our answer section, whereby we are saying, so on the first point, we are saying the private sector can increase the tax base for the government, hence allowing the state to offer more services for the community. So we have got increasing the tax base. Remember, uh, when it's privatized, it means it's going to be taxed, and taxation is one of the sources of revenue for the government. So obviously, government is going to attain more revenue from those businesses that are under the private sector. So we have also second point, which reads, a privatization eliminates the burden of bailing out parastatals from the government, thereby allowing the state to focus its attention at provisioning of services. So remember, when it's other public sector is supposed to be given funding, that's the bailing out. So when it's now privatized and the government is not yet obliged to assist those organizations as they have been privatized. So that becomes an advantage as they can now make full focus on attending the provision of services, so which is the core of the government. So basically, that's what we have on the second point. Then you go to the next question. We see that this is the last question that we have on this page, that is 2.2.5. So moving on to the next question, which is going to be 2.3. Start the graph below and answer the question that follow. We are given a graph of USD ZAR historical charts. So you can see that this is the chart that we have. And then beneath that chart, first question 2.3.1 reads, identify the South African currency shown above. Obviously, the ZAR is the South African currency, which is the rand. Very clear as it is. And then the second part is saying, name any one exchange rate system. We know that we have the floating exchange rate system. We also have the fixed exchange rate system. So those are the exchange rate systems that we have, whereby we're saying free floating exchange rate, and then we've got the fixed exchange rate. So those are the exchanges that we have. And then on this next part is saying, briefly describe the term devaluation. So devaluation basically is the loss of value of the currency. We are saying it's an official lowering of the value of a country's currency within a fixed exchange rate system. So you are going to see that devaluation is a deliberate action that has been taken to lower the value of the currency. In other words, there is a visible hand that is there, which is different from depreciation of currency. Depreciation of currency is also loss of value of the currency, but the loss has taken place from the free forces of supply and demand of foreign currency, whereby we are saying there is no visible, but there is invisible hand that is taking place. So invisible meaning there is uncontrollable hand that is reduce the value of the currency. So basically, that's the difference that we have. So the explanation that we have for devaluation, according to our answer section, saying devaluation refers to the deliberate action by the central bank to reduce the value of currency in relation to other currencies. So that's what we have. Then we go to 2.3.4, explain the negative effect depreciation of a currency has on consumers. So obviously, on depreciation of a currency, there's loss of value of the currency. So obviously, it's going to lead to many negatives. Obviously, prices are going to increase. That's the first clear negative effect that we can deduce. So we are going to see that import costs increase. Imported goods become more expensive, leading to higher costs of businesses and consumers. So with those businesses that are maybe importing their raw materials or inputs, they are going to face high cost of production, which is obviously going to be a negative in terms of maybe contracting their profit margins. obviously also increasing their final price as they try to compensate the high cost of raw materials or inputs. So this can fuel inflation as well. So the inflation is the final negative effect that we can see that is going to affect the whole economy. Then we've got third part, purchasing power reduction. The decreased value of the currency means that the consumers can buy fewer goods and services both domestically and abroad with the same amount of money. So that's another negative that is going to be resulted. So moving on to the next part, which is 2.3.5. How does the Russia-Ukraine conflict negatively affect South Africa? So obviously, as stated, it negatively affected South Africa. In the case of those companies or businesses that are importing from Ukraine, obviously, there is a contraction in terms of production in Ukraine due to the war. So in that case, a supply is going to be reduced or is going to be contracted. So when the supply is reduced, it means we are going to have less supply in South Africa for those companies that are producing using those raw materials from Ukraine. So at the end of the day, when the supply decreases according to the forces of supply and demand, we are going to see that also prices increase. When we have something that is has low supply, the price of that commodity is going to go up. So that is again a negative effect that we can easily pick up. So we have also that stated in answer section 2.3.5, whereby we are saying import prices from these countries have since become more expensive due to supply shocks. So this is exactly as we're explaining. This conflict has slowed down production for South Africa, thereby slowing down economic growth. So it's also going to lead to macroeconomic problems, e.g., economic growth is going to be reduced. So these are some of the negative results that we can easily pick up. Then moving on to the next part, it reads, briefly discuss availability of natural resources and availability of labor resources as reasons for international trade. So I remember when we are talking about international trade, it's basically the interaction that takes place between nations. It might be interaction in terms of the exchange. It will be interaction in terms of the exchange of goods and services between nations, and that's international trade. So, how can availability of natural resources be a reason for international trade? It's because the way the natural resources are spread around the world is different. Some countries have some resources, some do not have. So in that case, those who do not have those resources would want to acquire them from other nations. So they engage in international trade. So that again is explained from the point of view of availability of labor resources. We locally in the economy, there might be a lack of a certain industry skilled labor won't be adequate, so they need to access that labor from other countries. So they import the labor from other countries, whereby foreigners come and work in the local economy. It might be a lack of engineers in the local economy that has led to those companies to import labor from other countries, whereby those foreigners come and work in the domestic economy. So in that scenario, we are having that as a reason for international trade. So we have that again explained, other section whereby we are saying availability of natural resources. We are saying natural resources are unevenly distributed across all countries in the world. So this is the reason why we are having that such a scenario. They vary from country to country and can only be exploited in places where these resources exist. And then a country may be richly endowed with different natural resources, but less endowed with the skilled labor and capital. So this is the scenario that we have. So while less others may have relative abundance of skilled labor, but lack natural resources. So they need to access what they don't have from other nations. So thereby leading to international trade. So in terms of availability of labor resources, the first part is saying labor differs from country to country in terms of skills, knowledge, training, quality, and costs. So some countries have highly skilled, well-paid workers and high productivity levels. So the essence comes to the same thing that is about accessing what you don't have in your local economy, thereby leading to international trade. So this is what we have for that part. Then moving on to 2.5, how does an ineffective tax system affect the efficiency of the government? An ineffective tax system is a tax system that is uh, leaking meaning the total amount of revenue that is supposed to be collected through taxation is not being collected. We are collecting less. That is ineffective tax system. So remember, the revenue collection, the amount that has been collected through revenue collection is the same amount that is going to be used in funding social services. It's also the same amount that is going to be issued as government expenditure under, for example, the issuance of grants to the citizens of the country. So those in that way, government expenditure is going to be negatively affected. And obviously, it's going to negatively affect the citizens of the country. So that is another point that we can raise in terms of how does an ineffective tax system affect the efficiency of the government. That's the standard that we have. So, in our other section, we are saying, so we have explained ineffective tax system as taxation as collection of revenue are being lower than normal. So we are saying less tax revenue may be accumulated due to tax evasion and unaddressed taxes. So that's the first point that we have. And then ineffective tax system hinders the ability of the state to provide public goods. Because for them to provide those public goods, they need the revenue. And the revenue is the one that is linked, we didn't collect as normal. So obviously it will affect the provision of public goods. Then third point, it will accumulate state debts as the government will be compelled to borrow in order to make a provision. And then lastly, failure to collect tax can further increase the level of inequality on the economy as taxes are used as a tool to promote economic equity. So we are seeing that in that scenario, we are going to have inequalities in the economy, whereby the gap between the rich and the poor is not going to be closed. Remember, redistribution of income is the exercise that shortens the gap that exists between the rich and the poor, whereby money is taken from the rich through taxation, and then it's issued through grants to the less privileged, that is the poor, so that we close the gap between the two. So since we do not, the revenue is not enough due to ineffective tax system, is going to widen the gap between the rich and the poor, thereby leading to inequalities in the economy. So basically, this becomes the last part that we have according to our question 2, which is our question 2.5. And we are now moving on to the next question, which is obviously going to be our third question. So our question 3, the first question reads, name any two sub-accounts of the balance of payment. Our question is for 2 marks. So obviously it needs you to raise two sub-accounts. So we have the current account is one of them, and then we've got the financial account again. So we have them again stated, as a section whereby you say current account. We also have the capital transfer account and the financial account. So those are the three that we have. Then 3.1.2, what is the effect of corruption on the standard of living? So obviously it's going to have a negative effect on standard of living, whereby it's going to reduce the standard of living. So basically corruption on its own, in terms of its description, it is corruption, it is a criminal offense that is undertaken by a person or an organization that is entrusted in a position of authority. So we are saying it's a criminal offense and is taken by a person or an organization that is entrusted in the position of authority. So that person or organization would have been entrusted in the position of authority, and then they engage in criminal offenses. So in other words, they're abusing their positions as given. So basically, it's abuse of power for one's gain. You abuse your power for the gain. For your personal gain, it becomes a corruption. So what effect does it have on standard of living? Obviously, that's the same corruption that is going to lead to leakages in terms of revenue collection, the revenue that is supposed to be used by the government to uplift the less privileged. So obviously, it's going to worsen the situation. So we have the effects in our other section whereby we are saying corruption results in embezzlement of state funds, hence decelerating economic development. That's the first point. And then corrupt officials use state funds to advance their personal interests. This further opens the inequality gap. So remember, we were saying revenue collected is the one that is used to be redistributed so that the gap between the rich and the poor is closed. So when there's corruption is going to cause leakages in revenue collection. So less revenue is going to be available to be used to close that gap. So it will end up causing inequality gaps. So this is what we have. So moving on to next question, is saying start the article and answer the question that follow. So you are given an article that you just need to read through and understand what we have in the article. So the first question beneath that, it reads, identify the physical instrument that is discussed on the above article. So we need to identify it. But if you go on the first sentence, it's saying the finance minister delivered the medium-term budget policy statement, that is MTBPS, to the members of the National Assembly on Wednesday, 1 November at 1400 hours at the Cape Town City Hall. The MTBPS plays a critical role in the overall budget process as it sets out the policy framework for the budget that is presented every February. So obviously, the fiscal instrument that is there is the budget. So the budget becomes the physical instrument. So moving on to the next part of the question, give any one example of direct tax. Income tax is a clear example of direct tax. For example, income tax in the form of pay as you earn that is charged on personal income. It's an example. So we have those examples in the other section whereby we are saying we have income tax, capital gains tax also. It's a direct tax, although the question requires one. Also have transfer tax as an example of direct tax. So moving on to the next part of our question is saying, briefly describe the term bureaucracy. So bureaucracy refers to a complex organization. So wherever there's bureaucracy, it describes a complex organization that has multi-layered systems and processes. It consists of rigid processes that within that organization. That is bureaucracy. So the description that we have reads, bureaucracy is a formal organizational structure characterized by hierarchical levels of authority, standardized procedures, and strict adherence to rigid rules and regulations. Rigidity is the main basis of bureaucracy. It means the rules that are there cannot easily be changed. They are not flexible. They cannot be changed according to changing situations. Remember, there are rules that have to be changed to changes maybe in the situations that are at hand. So when there's bureaucracy, those rules cannot be easily changed. So they are not flexible. So this is the explanation that we have. And then 3.2.4, why is it important for the government to ensure that public funds are not poorly managed? We understand why, so that it cannot lead to corruption, which obviously is not going to lead to those leakages that we have been talking about in terms of revenue collection. So let's see the reason that we have answer section. Investment of state funds hinders the ability of the government to provide public services in the right quantities and in the right time. So this has been caused, obviously, by those funds that has been lost through corruption. So it will lead to these negatives. So when state funds are poorly managed, the state fails to achieve its macroeconomic objectives, therefore causing public sector failure. So obviously, one of the macroeconomic objectives that we can talk about, we have listed them. We can talk about full employment as a macroeconomic objective. So when we have investment of state funds, we are not going to attain full employment, simply as that. So we go to the next part, which is 3.2.5. How does a decline or a decrease in tax revenue negatively affect the economy? So this is very clear. It's going to reduce the economic activities. Economic activities are going to be reduced. A decline in tax revenue lowers the standard of living as the state relies on the tax base to fund the community projects. So that's one of them. And then when tax revenue decreases, the government is not able to render support to businesses by giving grants, subsidies, etc. Remember, subsidies, these are amounts of money that are given to those businesses that are facing high cost of production, so that their cost of production decreases. So when the cost of production decreases, they expand their production capacities. When they expand their production capacity, economic activity is enhanced. So that is here that we have. So this means that businesses must bear all the costs and consolidate by increasing prices. So we see another negative, inflation is going to result. So we go to the next part, which is now question 3.3. Start the table below and answer the questions that follow. We've got a table of terms of trade. South Africa terms of trade. We've got an index of import prices as a column, and then we've got index of export prices as a column. Then we've got terms of trade as a column. So from year 2020 to year 2022, first question is saying identify the index of export prices in the year 2022. Index of export prices is in this column, and year 22 is here, and we have 200. That is here, simply as that. So we have got this one, 200. That's our response. Then what is the trend of import prices from the table above? Import prices is here in this column. And the trend, we see that 2020 it was 141, 2021 it was 153, 2022 was 163. So basically we are seeing that it's increasing. So that's the trend that is there. It's an upward movement, or just say it's increasing. That's correct. Then we go to 3.3.3, briefly describe the term foreign direct investment. What is foreign direct investment? So basically, foreign direct investment is investment from a party in one country into a business or a corporation in another country. So we have a foreigner coming into our domestic economy and invest in our economy. That is foreign direct investment. Or we can describe it from the point of view that it's a purchase of an asset in the domestic economy by a foreigner. So it's also foreign direct investment. So we have a brief description that we have, as a section of foreign direct investment, which reads, FDI, foreign direct investment, refers to the ownership stake in a foreign country or project made by investor or company or government from another country. So basically, that's exactly as we are trying to point it out. Then moving on to the next part of our question. Is saying what benefit will an increase of the index of export prices have on the economy? What benefit will an increase in the index of export prices have on the economy? So if the index of export prices increase, what benefit does it have on the economy? So we have also that other section, but we can first try to understand what do we mean by index of export prices. Very important for us. So an index, when there is an increase in index of export prices, is it will be typically due to a strong foreign demand. When there's a strong foreign demand of our goods, obviously it's going to lead to an increase in the index of export prices. So in that case, obviously there are benefits that we can also try to explain it from the point of view of a BOP surplus, that is a balance of payment surplus. So that's the scenario that we have. So we can try to see according to our answer section, whereby saying the index of export prices, as this is deemed as an injection, therefore it kicks the multiplier for the South African economy. So it leads to an increase of the multiplier. And then an increase in the index of export prices signals an increase in output levels and improvement in the level of economic activities and economic growth. So we are saying foreign demand has increased, as we have explained, that an increase in export prices, index of export prices, comes from an increase of foreign demand. So when there is increase of foreign demand, obviously our local goods are being demanded more. So when they are being demanded more, it means it's going to lead to more goods being produced so that we can meet the foreign demand. When we during the process of increasing our production capacity so that we match the foreign demand, it will lead to economic growth. which is also an increase in economic activities, is explained in the second point. So I'm moving on to the next question. Calculate the terms of trade for 2022. That is A. Show all calculations. So we can just try to see. So we need the formula first. What is the formula for calculating terms of trade? So we say index of export price index of export price over index of import price. And then we multiply by 100 over 1. So this is the formula. So we have those figures there. Index of export price for 2022. We have it here, it is 200. So we are saying 200 over index of import price. We are having it in this column, which is 163 here. And we multiply by 100 over 1. You are going to see that the final answer that you are going to get is 122.6. So this is going to be your answer. So this is the calculation that we have. So moving on to the next part of the question, saying briefly discuss politicians and special interest groups as reasons for public sector failure. Politicians and special interest group as reasons for public sector failure. So on politicians, we are saying politicians are often interested in being re-elected. So their main motive is being re-elected rather than service delivery. Being elected to their positions rather than serving the public. So that's one of the reasons. The second one, they often pursue vote maximizing strategies to secure or retain their political offices, ignoring their main mandate that they have to be focused on service delivery. The pressure of looming election often can make many politicians make decisions just to make the voting public happy. And then last point, some projects can be undertaken even if they were not budgeted for or no proper cost benefit analysis was conducted. So you see that the issue of deviating from the budget can negatively affect. That is the essence that we have when we have politicians negatively indulging in activities that will obviously damage the economy. So we go to special interest groups or rent-seeking groups. Rent-seeking refers to when people spend money on lobbying in order to increase their wealth without actually creating any more wealth. That is rent-seeking. So special interest groups such as farmers or organized labor often attempt to influence government to their own advantage. So that's the reason why we have that negative effect. So that's what we have on politicians and special interest groups. Then we move on to 3.5, which is saying how does borrowing finance borrowing to finance a deficit on the balance of payment affect the economic stability. So obviously, when you borrow money, you are going to repay with interest. So interest becomes an expense, which is obviously going to negatively affect. So we are going to see that in that case, the repayments now might be huge. That will obviously leave will leave the country with less money to use for developmental purposes. So that will negatively affect. So we have those reasons again articulated in the answer section, whereby you say it will increase interest rates. Interest rates increase the government borrowing can put upward pressure on the interest rates. Interest rates basically is the cost of borrowing. When the cost of borrowing increases, it also obviously means accessing the credit lines in terms of our local businesses is going to be more expensive. So we see that businesses they're going to contract their taking loans, and when the funding is reduced, there's also contraction of production capacities. So we are saying, especially if the government competes with the private sector for the funds, and they can dampen investment and consumption, potentially slowing economic growth. So that's how we can explain this point. And also crowding out when the government borrows heavily, it may reduce the availability of funds for private investment. So remember, for us to have a situation whereby we have got a widening of economic activities in our local economy, there should be funding. And that funding comes from financial institutions when they lend money to the private sector. So when the money is being taken by the government and less money is available to be issued as loans, obviously it's going to contract production capacities. That's the situation that we have. So the basic line is many businesses are borrow so that they can increase their production capacity. So when there is no money for lending, it means economic activity is going to be negatively affected. Then next we've got a debt service burden. A higher debt means a larger portion of government revenue must be allocated to debt servicing, that is paying interest for the debt. So that's the issue that we're talking about, that when you borrow, it means you're going to repay with interest, which is going to lead to a debt service burden. And then we've got fiscal measures implemented to counter borrowing may have long-term negative effects on economic stability. So that becomes our 3.5, 3.5, which is obviously going to be the last question on question 3. And now we are now moving to the essay section, whereby we are only going to answer question 4 within the context of this video. So coming on to our question on section C, which is obviously going to be the question on our essay part. So we have got an instruction that we are given in terms of how we are supposed to come up with your essay, whereby we have got the structure of an essay. We are going to have your introduction. After introduction, you go to the body, which is the main part, which also consists of your additional parts. So instructions of how to go about it is being given there. Then allocation of marks, obviously, we've got 2 marks for the introduction, and then we have got 26 marks on the main part, 10 marks on the additional part, and then 2 marks conclusion. So within the context of this video, we are only going to concentrate on the main body. So in introduction, remember the best way to come up with the introduction is to define any term that you can try to pick in your question. And of course, it has to be an economic term that you pick and define in your introduction. Then from there, you go to your body where you are going to answer the question. So the question that we are going to look at is on macroeconomics, and obviously it has 40 marks and requires you to spend on average 40 minutes. So the first part of the question is discuss in detail the markets within the 4-sector model. And then the second part, which is going to be the additional part, how can an increase in consumer spending contribute to the economy of the country? So introduction, obviously, you are supposed to define. You can define a market. You can define a market whereby a market is defined as any conduct or communication between actual or potential buyers and actual and potential sellers of goods and services. So this can be a definition that you can come up with for a market. So you go to the main part now. The main part, that's where we are going to answer the first part, whereby we are saying, discuss in detail the markets within the 4-sector model. So remember, we've got the product market. We're also going to have the financial market. So those are some of the markets that we are going to include there. So we are going to start with the product market. So on the product markets, we are saying that's where we have got goods and services in the product market. So we have the product or goods market, where goods and services are traded in the product market. All participants purchase these goods and services in the product market. Then the second part, goods are defined as tangible items such as food, clothing, and cars that satisfy some human wants or needs. And then services are non-tangible actions such as cleaning services, medical care, etc. that satisfy human wants or needs. So we have also non-durable goods, those items which are used up when they are consumed and cannot be reused, for example, cool drink, petrol, electricity. So obviously you can go on and try to explain on durable goods, which are goods that are going to last for a longer period of time. You can talk of furniture, you can talk of equipment as durable goods. And of course, you can further go on and describe a semi-durable goods, which lasts a short period of time and can be used more than once. They last a short period of time, but they can be used more than once. So that's a semi-durable. Then durable goods, I think they can durable goods now they can be used over again and again and do not wear out very easily. That's durable goods. So those are the further subdivisions that we can come up with in terms of durable, non-durable, durable, and semi-durable. Then we go to the next market that we have, which is going to be the factor or resource market. So the four factors of production are found in the factor or resource market. So we are saying the four factors of production are traded for income in the form of wages or salaries, interest, economic rent, and profit. Remember, salaries, wages, salaries, interest, economic rent, and profit are the factor income. After offering your factors of production, you receive them as income. Then we've got a second part, which is second point, a business purchases the factors of production from households in the factor market. And of course, this is labor. And then we have got the price and quantity traded is also determined by interaction between supply and demand. The factor market can be further subdivided into markets in which different factors of production, like labor and property. And then we have also the financial market. So the financial market obviously is going to determine the borrowing and lending of money. So we are saying the financial market serves those who wish to save and those who wish to borrow. The money, capital, and foreign exchange markets are part of the financial market. So you see that the money market, the capital market, and foreign exchange market are part of the financial market. This sector represents financial institutions which are not directly involved in the production of goods and services, but are a link between participants in the economy with surplus money and participants who require funds. Households make their financial capital available to the financial sector in the form of savings. So we are now having the subdivisions of money market, which is under the financial market, also and capital market under the financial market, that we can further on explain. Whereby money market, we are saying it's under the South African Reserve Bank, which is the central bank. This is used by the participants as a means of borrowing and lending in short term from a few days to just less than 3 years. So basically, that's what we have in terms of the period. South African Bank is a key institution in the money market. Then we have the capital market. Of course, it involves issuing of shares, which is under the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the SE, is a key institution in the capital market. So we move on to the foreign exchange market. In this market now, we are having a foreign currency as the instrument that we are having under the foreign exchange market. In an open economy, foreign currency is needed to facilitate transaction between countries. It is on this market that one currency can be exchanged for another. So that's where we have the exercise of exchanging of one currency with another. The amount that is received in this exchange is known as exchange rate. And basically, when it's a free-floating exchange rate system, we are going to see that the exchange rate will be determined by the forces of demand and supply. So to a lesser extent, it can be influenced by the Reserve Bank, that is the foreign exchange market. There are sometimes influenced by the Reserve Bank, which is our central bank. And then we go to the additional part. Remember, the additional part reads, how can an increase in consumer spending contribute to the economy of the country? So when consumers increase their spending, it's going to lead to positives. Remember, an increase in the spending is going to lead to increase in demand of goods and services in the country. In that case, we are going to see that revenue is going to increase for the businesses that we have in the local economy. And then when the revenue increases, it widens the gap between revenue and costs, and also profit margins are widened. In that case, those businesses are going to reinvest their profits and expand their production capacities. It's going to lead to a higher economic activity, which is a positive, which is going to increase the gross domestic product. That increase finally will lead to economic growth. Remember, economic growth is the increase of the market value of goods and services being produced from one period to the other. When there's an increase, we say there is economic growth. So basically, those are some of the positives that we can deduce from increase in consumer spending. So we have them also stated in our answer section, whereby we're saying when consumers spend more, businesses are able to increase sales, generate more profit, and hire more workers, thereby increasing the employment rate in the country. So when they expand their production capacity, obviously, they're expanding by accommodating more workers. So we have unemployment being reduced. So one macroeconomic problem will be solved. That is the problem of unemployment. And then we've got the real GDP of the country increases as output level increases. So higher economic activity will increase GDP. The country gains a positive outlook from foreign investors, therefore an increase in foreign direct investment. And also investors are going to be attracted from that end. And when they are attracted, we are also going to have an increase in foreign direct investment. It gives relief to the government from the burden of providing for the society as less transfer payments are made. Less transfer payments are going to describe the issue of subsidies. The issue of grants is also part of that. So that's what we have. So it's going to be a relief on the government is that increase in consumer spending is going to lead to higher collection of revenue, and then we are going to have less unemployed people in the country. So we are going to see that the unemployment benefit will now be given to a lesser number of people. So it lessens the burden. So that's the case that we have. The efficient allocation of resources is promoted and choice is widened. The country becomes globally competitive as the demand for the international goods may arise. So those are some of the positives that we can deduce from consumer spending. And obviously, at the end, you are going to end with your conclusion, which obviously is going to have your 2 marks. So introduction and conclusion in total will give you 4 marks, 2 marks and 2 marks. So the main marks are in the main body. So this is the last question that we have according to this video within the context of this video. Thank you for listening, and hopefully the video was helpful. And please, let's take note, more typical examination questions will be uploaded on this channel. So let's stay tuned by subscribing and sharing to all our colleagues who are doing grade 12 economics. Let's meet again in the next video.